And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore. We never said out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Today we got rivalry week preview. It's already week 14. We got conference championship races online. We got rivalries at stake. We got 8 games we want to preview this week. We could have gone more, okay? But we decided to narrow it down to 8 this week because we also got a decent amount of dirty dogs like we do every week. So we're going to be talking about some of those games there. And then we're also got some best bets for you. I've got 5 plays. CD's got 7. That's what's on the agenda today. Previewing 8 games, the dirty dogs, as you know, the 10-point underdogs that we know during rivalry week especially can absolutely smack. And then our 7 best bets of the week. Guys, thank you so much for supporting us throughout this college football season. Make sure that you hit that like button if you like the video. It's a simple rule that we have here. And make sure you're subscribed so you're here for the rest of the way. Not just this week, but conference championship week as well as the bowl season, which for us is a gigantic season for us. And we'll be stay tuned with that one. We're going to probably have a bowl pool again this year. We had a lot of fun with that last year. So make sure you guys are locked in for that. So, CD, what's going on, dude? I mean,
Best week of the
we're
year.
recording this at we're recording this at 6:30 a.m. because we're absolutely fired up.
Juiced up, ready to go. Pause. I can't wait, man. This is to me the week I look forward to every single year. To me, everyone debates on when's the best sports month, when's the best week of sports, or the weekend. To me, this is it, and it's going to start today. I guess Tuesday night. It's going to be awesome. I think we're so lucky to be in a spot right now with so many games, meaning stuff. You talked about it in the last episode. You were like, we were not conference expansionists by any means, but the way it's shaken out right now, we have a ton of treats. And it feels like we have a ton of early playoff games, road, home, rivalry games. It means so much to so many teams. Just about every conference is up for debate right now. And holy cow, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, and with that, we'll get right into it. Okay, we're gonna start with our first game. It is surprisingly college football playoff implications. I think on both ends, and maybe some people are gonna be surprised by that. But South Carolina travels to Clemson. Clemson 2.5 point favorites. These are two teams that I think are trending generally in the opposite direction. I think Clemson, that run where Cade Klubnik had, that he was fantastic. I think they benefited a lot from their schedule. Okay. Lenore Sellers right now in this South Carolina Gamecocks team are playing some of the best football in the entire country right now. And I do not think that that's crazy to say at all. When Lenore Sellers is on, that defense, for one, is scary. I mean, Dylan Stewart, Kyle Kennard, Tonka Hemingway, DJ Sanders. Okay. That's 4 NFL players right there that you have on your defensive line. Okay. Not to mention a linebacker, Debo Williams, Ben Martin Scott, whoever you want back there. You got a nice little safety there as well, and a couple corners that have played pretty good football. I mean, you are loaded. And that's not to say Clemson isn't loaded either on the defensive side of the football, led by a couple of veterans right there and some young guys as well on that defensive line that are kind of menaces. Uh, so, CD, what's the angle right here in this game? As I mean, yeah, this isn't a conference game, right? Both these teams' conference seasons are over, and they're just waiting, on the, I guess, the result, South Carolina results of college football playoffs. If they beat Clemson here, and Clemson has to wait on the result of the Miami game to see whether or not they're in the ACC championship. But this is still going to be a crazy game. This is a heated rivalry. It's on the road. This is going to be awesome.
You said it feels like a playoff game, right? Like it's to me like underratedly both sides mean something. Potentially Clemson obviously has a chance to back their way in if Miami does lose, no matter what this outcome is, right? This is not a conference game, so neither side is it going to affect their conference record. However, for an at-large bid, for things like that, because of certain teams have lost and the chaos that's probably going to ensue right this weekend, a lot of teams playing each other as well ahead of these guys in the rankings. This could end up being a big time factor in the committee's decision making, right? When it comes down to who's going to get into the playoffs. To me, I think an underrated matchup here is going to be that South Carolina offensive line, which has been playing better as of late, versus this Clemson defensive line. South Carolina's defensive line should get the attention because it deserves it. You mentioned all of those guys. They are a bunch of studs, and they get after it. They have given everybody fits since week one, and everyone saw that, and it's been true all season long. I want to mention a couple guys for Clemson. Give me Peter Woods here at edge. You know, a lot of times he's a bigger edge here, so him stopping the run on early downs is going to be pivotal for Clemson to get after, Lenore Sellers and Rocket Sanders, two guys who have been playing very good football as of late, like you said. And then also TJ Parker, Peyton Page, Shaheem Lawson, guys like that to get after Sellers on third and long. Yeah, and also Clemson's got to get healthy too. Wade Woodass, linebacker, RJ Mickens, safety, couple offensive linemen on that left side, Tristan Leahy, Marcus Tate, all banged up. Tyler Brown, Jake Bringstall. Sounds like they'll get a lot of those guys back, which is awesome. I mean, they didn't play in that Citadel game more so because of they were just kind of sitting out. And I think that was a little bit more intentional, getting guys healthy, knowing how important this game is going to be for Clemson and potentially the games they've lost and the mistakes they've made, they can be forgiven by a huge win against your rival as a short favorite here. But man, oh man, I don't know. I like South Carolina in this. I think you get Joshua Simon back. I think you get Jared Brown back, and that could help you defensively, or I'm sorry, offensively, pushing the ball down the field, making big time explosive plays. Simon's been their best weapon all year, in the air as a tight end. He's been really, really fun to see. I want to ask you this: is there a quarterback edge here? Because if you ask me,
No.
thank you. I've been a guy who has been on this Cade Klubnik, on this Clemson wide receiver, you know, parade. I think not parade, but I've been in their corner all season long. Going back to the offseason, I'm like, hey, there's a lot of weapons here. There's a lot of weapons here. And while I still think that might be the case, a couple stats that are interesting to me that really, really stand out. On third down, Clemson is completing 66.3% of its passes. That is fantastic. That's a great clip. But of those 66% of those passes, only 38 have gone for first downs. 38%. That is crazy. So I don't know. I
You
just
think
think
that's
it's not
scheme? You think that's after the catch? You think
maybe check
that's
down. Oh, it's whatever it is. I don't know if it gets fixed against the South Carolina team. I don't think it's something where
well, Clemson's still completing third downs at a pretty decent clip, but it's because they've had third and shorts where they could just press the Phil Maffa button
yep,
that they're not going to be able to press against the South Carolina defense. I'm on South Carolina. I'm on them plus 2.5, and I'm on
yep.
them to win straight up here on the road. I know it's a tough place to play, but uh, I really like this Gamecocks team. Go back to the offseason, right? When I was sitting there saying, look, this Clemson team, the reason why I wasn't on that over, maybe with some other people, was because one, I thought that there were some gettable spots for them in the conference play, right? I thought Virginia Tech on the road might be tough, and I was pretty wrong about that. But one of the reasons was that this South Carolina game was kind of circled for me because, and sometimes I just love being right about things. All right, I got a lot of support from Gamecock fans, but I also got a lot of hate from other people, other fan bases, for saying that this South Carolina team has all of the talent that it needs to do damage to plenty of football teams. I called the upset, on Texas A&M. Uh, I didn't necessarily call the upset on LSU. Actually, I believe I did. Actually, preseason when we talked about breaking down their schedule. South Carolina's win total was at 5.5. I was way over that. I got it early when it was at minus 101. That thing moved to like minus 140. This South Carolina football team has been, was, is a good football team. And now that Lenore Sellers is putting it together with this group of wide receivers, with Joshua Simon at tight end, with Rocket Sanders kind of returning to form, with this offensive line, the improvements that they've made the second half of the season has been remarkable. And they're still young. Like next year, I know when you look at that defensive side of the football, you're like, man, they lose a lot of talent on that side of the ball. But the one thing you're carrying over from South Carolina to the next season is honestly a lot of that offensive line, which in a couple years previous to that, you would say, right? They got a lot of pieces to replace, and they weren't even that good. I think this is, kind of a flip situation. I think South Carolina's building something in the trenches. We'll see what Shane Beamer does in the future here, but in week 14, I believe he's going to beat Clemson.
Yeah,
CD?
yeah. I get sorry, kind of chilling there. Yeah, I'm with you here. I'm South Carolina. I thought I already picked my bad there. Plus 2.5. I'll take them on the road. At first, it scared me, but you go back and you look at some of their wins and how they have played on the road. You go back to Kentucky. You go back to Alabama, where they should have won that football game. You go back to Vanderbilt, obviously, in Oklahoma as well. Obviously, this might be a little bit more intense because of the pressure that is on both these teams right now and the intensity you're going to feel in a rivalry game, right? With the playoff stakes. South Carolina has not been in this spot here, been in a spot where they are vying for a playoff spot. That does scare me a little bit, but I do trust Shane Beamer. I do trust if you can run the ball and stop the run with, Demetrius Knight there and him locking down Phil Maffa. Like, to me, you can run the ball, you can stop the run. Those things travel in whatever conference you're going to, in whatever environment you're going to be in. Those things are huge for you.
Yeah,
So
and
South,
as good as that D line is for Clemson, and that linebacking core, Barrett Carter, Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, Peyton Page, those guys, it hasn't been perfect stopping the run this year. It hasn't been perfect.
which is concerning for sure.
Which
And
is
also too, I think South Carolina's secondary, like their front seven gets a lot of hype, which it shouldn't. But O'Donnell Fortune and Collier on the outside there, Kilgore on the inside, Smith and Eman Warrior, little playmakers there. Between those guys, or between the four of the starters, really, they got 12 interceptions, 13 pass breakups. Like, that's pretty playmaker if you ask me. And I could absolutely see Cade Klubnik putting the ball in tough spots, and a pick here and there. We know South Carolina loves to take advantage of those things. So if you're Clemson, you almost got to play mistake free football, even as a short favorite. It's crazy.
Kansas State travels to Ames, Iowa in a gigantic Big 12 matchup. We'll kind of, as we go, sort of break down these matchups and like what they mean potentially, but there are implications for every other team in this conference that depend on this game, as well as other games in the Big 12, right? But this is one of those linchpin keystone games because Iowa State does have only 2 losses in the Big 12. So right now they are tied for that first place spot. Iowa State is favored by 2.5 points here against Kansas State, a Kansas State football team that has taken some tough losses this year, but an Iowa State team that's also taken some tough losses this year. Did both of these teams lose to Houston?
I don't think Iowa State did.
Who did Iowa State lose to?
They lost to Kansas, and then they lost to, wow. Oh no, I was gonna say that
Oh,
was
Texas
they.
Tech.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Oh
Texas
yeah,
Tech.
that was the Baron Morton last second. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So this is a nighttime game too. Night games in Ames with the Big 12 Conference Championship on the line, which, by the way, Iowa State has what? Never won. Okay. They haven't won a conference championship. I mean, it's dating back decades, at least. Um, has to be. I don't think they've ever won the Big 12. I'm just gonna look that up really quick. They have 2 conference championships. Both were when they were in the Missouri Valley Conference, which would later be known as the Big Eight, and then that turned into the Big 12.
And then
So it was before that. It was before the whole even rebrand. Uh, yeah, they were years ago. Okay, so this fan base is hungry. Matt Campbell is doing a great job. We did a Big 12 coaches draft, like in the offseason, just like to kind of, because I think it was a new Big 12. Like, hey, where do these coaches actually rank in the Big 12? Or not draft, but like we ranked them, you and I, and then kind of talked about them. And, I think a lot of people were upset with where we ranked Matt Campbell. And that's very fair because Matt Campbell has done nothing but awesome things at Iowa State. He's been really good. He's overperformed what that program is normally uh, privy to. my criticisms, rely on, in the new era of college football, would you want Matt Campbell as your head coach as a guy that doesn't dip his hands or toes into the transfer portal? Yeah, there's some criticism there, but to say that his team is not talented, this one that he's built with young talent too for even the next several years, would be absolutely criminal to basically disregard all the shit that he has done for this program. And Chris Kleiman on the other end, they've done really well. They've won the Big 12 within the last few years. They beat that TCU team that made it to the national championship. Now that was with Will Howard at quarterback, and Avery Johnson comes in this year as potentially the savior at quarterback. Kicking out Will Howard. National championship level quarterback Will Howard. But I mean, this is a good matchup, dude. Both of these teams are pretty solid for Big 12 standards. Iowa State's defense has been really locked down in that secondary. Where they've had issues, is on that ground game, that run defense. Where I said at the beginning of the season, hey, guys, let's pump the brakes on the Iowa State stuff. I got a lot of hate for that, whatever. Then they give up 300 yards on the ground to UCF. They let up a billion yards to Texas Tech, a billion yards to this, that, and the other. Um, this one for me is more of matchup based. I like Kansas State in this spot. I'll take them plus 2.5. Um, I think you might be on Iowa State in this spot. I know it's in Ames. I know it's at night. I know Avery Johnson, if he's playing from behind, it's not a good look. And Kansas State's secondary has been a little bit leaky because remember, they lose Kobe Savage in the offseason. They lose Will Lee in the offseason. They lost several important pieces in that secondary last year that made it really good. And while I think that front seven is pretty solid for Kansas State, I think that they're gettable in that back end, and Iowa State can throw the football. But I do think that Kansas State's going to try to control this game and keep the ball out of Iowa State's hands. And I think if they can execute that game plan on the road, I think that they can get a win. So I'll take Kansas State plus 2.5 and not love it.
Yeah, I'll actually ride with you there. First
Okay,
of all, in Farmageddon, which by the way is maybe the best rivalry name in all of college football. It doesn't
correct.
need any stakes to be an awesome football game. Just look at last year, but the fact that it means so much to both these teams potentially still being right alive for the Big 12 championship, and then also the playoff there, it's going to be awesome. Ames, Iowa is a fantastic place to play. I think that crowd's obviously going to be rocking there at a night game. But here's why I'm on Kansas State with you. You mentioned the rushing defense of Iowa State, right? They are 15th in the Big 12, which is not very good. There are 16 teams in the Big 12. Kansas State is third in the Big 12 rushing offensively, right? If they can stay ahead of the chains, if they can play clean football, they can really do some damage. To me, what scares me is when things have gone wrong for Kansas State, things have gone really wrong. In losses, they are averaging -2 turnover margin every single loss, which is terrifying. But if you play a brand of football, right, I know turnovers are hard to predict, but if you play a brand of football that is conducive to not turning the football over, not putting the ball in harm's way, a la running the football and getting chunk yardage on first and second down, you're going to put yourself in a much better spot. Also, Iowa State getting after Avery Johnson, they are tied for last in the Big 12 with only 14 sacks all year long. Meanwhile, Kansas State against going up against Rocco Beck, who does like to throw the football, who maybe is a smaller guy and maybe dealing with pressure off the middle and around the edges is maybe not the best at. Kansas State is second in the Big 12 with 30 sacks. It's going to get really interesting. However, Iowa State, even though they've suffered some losses in November, they've been playing really good football offensively. They have 69 plays that have gone for over 10 yards. That is by far first in the Big 12. That has been really, really impressive. Kansas State only has just 42. Whew, I said a lot there, but man, to me, it just feels like a game where you can just pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock if you're Kansas State and put Iowa State in bad spots, get after them with your pass rush, and then you can flip the field, get some easy scores with those turnovers and whatnot, potential three and outs, work field position. To me, it will be a Chris Kleiman special, right? And what he loves to do, run the football, play good defense, win the turnover margin. If you're doing that, good things will happen, I think, for Kansas State.
Yeah, and what's crazy when you look at, you talked about that Iowa State explosive offense. Nathan Shieldhouse, right, like the offensive coordinator for Iowa State, goes takes the job as the passing game coordinator, I guess, passing game whatever for the Rams in the NFL. Takes an NFL job, and I think there was some criticism, potentially from me. I don't know if I mentioned on the show, but in my head, I'm like, yeah, there were a lot of guys you could have gotten in that spot. You could have used that as an opportunity to kind of really open that thing up with the talent that you had. And then they just promoted Taylor Mauser, right? I believe he was the tight ends coach there, if not some other positional coach, and he just gets promoted. And this is his first season, and he's been fantastic, right? So credit to him, credit that coaching staff for Iowa State for one getting off to the hot start that they have, and you know in the power grab that we've continually talk about in the Big 12, like credit Iowa State. I know that they've lost two games, but also credit them for winning certain games that other teams would stumble in. Credit them beating Iowa. Uh, I just had like a bunch of their games pulled up, but credit them coming back in that UCF game, right? In a game where they let up 300 yards on the ground and being able to come back and fight and win that ball game. That was impressive. So I'll say credit to both of these teams. I've been a little bit more impressed with the body of work that Iowa State has maybe put together, but I think matchup base, I kind of like Kansas State in this spot. So sorry, Iowa State fans. I'm fading you guys once again. I'm sorry, but I honestly, I hope I hope we get to see an Iowa State Arizona State Big 12 championship. I think that would be my favorite outcome. I think. Let's go over to the MAC. Bowling Green is hosting Miami, Ohio in a win and in game for both of these football teams. These two teams and Ohio are tied for first place in the MAC. They all have one loss, and it is winning in for these guys. Ohio, if they win, actually, I don't know what the tiebreaker looks like, but they're playing a team that they should handle as double digit favorites. Ball State, I believe. Bowling
Which, by the
Green,
way,
man, is
both those games are going on at 11 a.m. on Friday afternoon. So, first of all, we know
yeah,
what we'll be doing watching the MAC, absolutely. But I love the fact that it's neither of these teams know, if because if Iowa loses, if Ohio loses, who knows how it'll break down with the teams there. I think Miami has the tiebreaker with that. But regardless, I think a lot of it is, it's pretty much just winning you're in because Ohio is playing a Ball State team where they are, over 2 touchdown favorites at home.
yeah. When I'm looking at this too, the MAC, dude, like some of these teams at the top of the MAC, right? I've just been very impressed. Okay, Toledo didn't necessarily respond as well to it, but Miami, Ohio, right? You lose your award-winning kicker, you lose your best edge rusher, you lose your best wide receiver, you lose your running back, right, to Ole Miss as Miami, Ohio, and they've responded. Bowling Green, in their situation, you lose your best defensive player probably, or one of them in Cassius Howell. You know, you lose some talent on the offensive line. You lose spots, and we talked about this with Ohio losing a ton of their starters uh, to the transfer portal, particularly on the offensive side of the football, and how impressive that they've been able to be bouncing back. You got to give credit to both of these teams, and a big reason for Bowling Green's success has been uh, one quarterback play from Connor Bazelak in certain big games, in big moments. Harold Fannin Jr. Holy shit, is he unreal at football? It is ungodly. It is incredible how good he is at football, playing that tight end position or wide receiver or whatever you play him at, running back, quarterback. I mean, whatever you want to play him at throughout his college career, he's played pretty much every single position on the offensive side of the football. Defensively, I've been impressed with Bowling Green, right? Especially when it comes to their pass rush. I mean, man, you lose Cassius Howell, who, by the way, is in a prime member of that Texas A&M third down package. You lose him, and all of a sudden, yeah, you're still racking up. What is that? 29 sacks on the season, which is good for top 30, not only in the MAC but in the entire country. So, and I've also been impressed, of course, with Miami, Ohio's defense, who has just been so good these last 6 weeks. Ever since that game where they lost against Toledo, they've just been on an absolute tear. And Brett Gabbert, I think, has elevated his play coming off the injury from last season. It was maybe a shaky start to the season for Miami of Ohio, but these teams are playing their best football entering this week, which is why we're here previewing this game, and we're going to talk about it because this is winning in. They're playing some of their best football, and not that this is going to have huge college football playoff implications, but I would imagine that the winner of this game is going to likely be favored against Ohio in the MAC championship, if I had to guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it. Bowling Green gets a lot of attention offensively because of what they did against some notable opponents, right? Penn State, Texas A&M. Early in the season, obviously Harold Fannin is a superstar. If you play college fantasy football, he is a weapon to have at the tight end spot. But defensively, you said it. They have been awesome. I look at a couple stats here that really impress me, especially in MAC football games. To me, if you're in the MAC, first of all, don't turn the football over, right? Secondly, do not give up explosive plays. Like they're going to happen, but just do not give up many explosive plays. Both these teams have been very good at that. Bowling Green second in the MAC in 10 plus plays allowed defensively. Miami Ohio is just third there. So both those teams top three. Love to see that. But in the red zone, playing red zone defense here and giving up field goals and not touchdowns, Bowling Green is second in red zone defense touchdown percentage, while Miami Ohio is seventh. To me, in the margins in the game with a short line, rivalry game here in state, I I like Bowling Green here. I think what they can do in generating explosive plays, I think they can finish in the red zone here with a weapon like Harold Fannin and what you can do with him, and even running the football as well. Although I know Miami Ohio very good at running the football as well, and obviously defensively, just such a good coaching staff there, and it's so hard to fade against them because you know how good they're going to be, disciplined, coaching, all that stuff. But I just think Bowling Green and how they've been playing recently in the MAC, how they've been playing defensively, to me gives them confidence to win this football game at home as, a short favorite here.
Um, I I think I'm going to be with you on this one. Although where the margins are so small, I do like gobbling up points, right? But I think I'm going to be on this one with you on the Bowling Green side. I think the best player on the field uh, is on Bowling Green's side of the field. I think Bowling Green is at home in this spot. Like you said, the explosive plays that they can generate, I could definitely see that, playing an impact in this game. I think Miami Ohio's offense has been really nice moving the football through the air these last couple weeks, which is really nice, really interesting to see there. I think this would be a really impressive win. In Miami, Ohio, this would impress me. I'm sure that they're power rated better than Bowling Green, given that this line's only at 2.5. So I'm sure, like on a neutral field, Miami might be slightly favored. But I think Bowling Green is more talented. And Terrion Stewart has kind of been banged up all year, and I think he's gonna be good to go in this game. And he's been really explosive in the run game when he has played for Bowling Green. So I'm liking yeah I'm liking Bowling Green in this spot with you. This was a tough game to pick for me for sure. Because like, what if Brett Gabbert just continues to deal? Like how many points do you need to score to beat Bowling Green if you're Miami, Ohio? I don't think it's as much as people think because I think Miami's defense can shut some people down.
The only thing that does concern me is Miami, Ohio getting off the field on third down, right? They are 10th out of 12th of MAC football teams, which to me is surprising to see at 42%, while the other side, Bowling Green, is second, only giving them 32%. That's where these margins are so small. Now, I get something like third down, something like turnovers, red zone defenses, like those things, yes, they translate throughout the season, but in a one off game, those can be variable and those can be dictating of outcomes, especially in a game that is so tight like this one. But I'm just trying to find margins. I'm trying to find some kind of predictions here. Additionally, too, Bowling Green is top five in the conference on converting third down. Miami, Ohio down there at 10 again. So on third down, where games are won potentially in the MAC, third and fourth down, Bowling Green to me has a significant advantage right throughout the season. Although in a one-off game, who knows what could happen. I don't love it, man. I don't love
Yeah,
it.
you're right. I mean, against Kent State 2 weeks ago, Miami Ohio was 3 of 11 on third down. Last week against Northern Illinois, they were like, what, 2 of 10, 2 of 12? Yeah, 2 of 10. So I see what you're saying right there, because I was thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, that stat, is that telling of more of the out of conference slate that Miami Ohio played? Is that? But it looks like, I mean, in a certain, even against Central Michigan, where they won 46-7, they were only 3 of 11 on third down, 2 of 2 on fourth down. So I see what you're kind of saying there, and I yeah, maybe there's a spot where Bowling Green finds ways to get Miami Ohio off the field, or maybe put them in situations where they got to go for it on fourth down, and maybe they
That's
haven't
where the
played.
real variance comes in
Yeah, that's where
too.
the real variance comes in, And look, the Northern Illinois, Ethan Hampton did not play his best game by any stretch of the imagination. Ontario Brown, I believe, was injured in that game, so he didn't even play at the running back spot. Although Northern Illinois had production without him, but yeah,
Although Miami Ohio does not like to go for it on fourth down. I know like a lot of teams in the MAC do, with most of them being above 15 and most of them being above 20, right? But Miami Ohio's only at 7. They're significantly down there at the bottom, along with their other in-state foe Ohio University. So yeah, they're only 3 for 7 on the year, which obviously you can't huge sample size. But I think it's more about the trend of they don't like to be going for on fourth down. That's what they got to win on third down. But if you get in spots here, maybe it's late game, whatever it may be. Who knows?
who would have thought that at this point in the season, after watching the first 6 weeks of football, that we'd be sitting here with Kansas going to Baylor as 1.5 point favorites, that this game would mean a ton for both teams. Baylor has a chance to make the Big 12 championship. All right, there are outcomes. There are outcomes, and more than one outcome uh, that can happen that can basically launch Baylor into the Big 12 championship. Kansas at 5-6 right now is playing for a bowl game, which we know that program hasn't done a lot before. I know that's the expectation under Lance Leipold now, which is ridiculous that he's changed that expectation in that program. But yeah, it's this game means a lot. Baylor, what they need basically, there's a couple different scenarios, but they kind of look like this, right? If Oklahoma State beats Colorado, then all they need to have happen is Kansas State wins, TCU wins, Arizona wins, Baylor, and then Baylor's got to win, right? I say that's all that needs to happen, right? But two of those teams are favorites, right? TCU and Baylor, and then Arizona, that's a rivalry game, and then Kansas State, that's Farmageddon, So uh, if Oklahoma State doesn't win, Colorado wins, then they do need Houston to upset BYU, Kansas State to also win, then Arizona to win. So either Houston or Oklahoma State basically needs to win, and then Arizona kind of needs to win. So there's still a situation where Baylor can make the Big 12 championship, and I believe there's like 2 or 3 more scenarios that would allow for Baylor to make it to the Big 12 championship, but those are kind of the big ones right there. And I know, like, if you parlay those scenarios, one of them gets you like plus 14,000, the other one gets you like plus 8,000. Which it's long shot odds, but they're playing for something. They're going to be playing for something. So I'm super excited for this game. Both of these teams are playing really good football right now. Sawyer Robertson, I want to credit you on this one, because this was last season that you pumped up, you hyped up Sawyer Robertson a lot, and he disappointed all of us. And I don't think you were necessarily off the train. You were never off the Baylor train with Dave Aranda, and I credit you for sticking with him, because I certainly was off the Baylor train, believing that he was going to probably get fired, that this was going to be his last season. I believed that Sawyer Robinson stunk and that Daquan Finn was going to be the guy that maybe could save him his job. But guess what? Sawyer Robertson is playing some damn good football right now. And Baylor looks like a dang good football team that's pretty dangerous. They're power rated higher than people think. Um, sure, they've had their issues this season, but these last couple weeks have shown that this Baylor team has got it in the Big 12, and that they can compete with some of this upper echelon talent there. And they are hosting this Kansas football team that's also hot as well. Jalen Daniels playing great. Devin Neal coming off a 300-yard performance on 37 carries. So this Baylor football team, which has done a pretty good job stopping the run, still has quite a test in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be awesome. Like you mentioned, why are we previewing this game? Well, look what's happened, right? Baylor, not only things that can happen with Baylor still alive for the Big 12, right? They won five straight. Kansas has single handedly just screwed everything up in the Big 12 because they have beat Iowa State, BYU, and Colorado, all handing them their second loss, their or two one of their two losses in the Big 12 there. I mean, it has been awesome. They looked like a team that was dead in the water, and they still had to play, their toughest opponents left. Kansas State on the road, Iowa State, BYU, Colorado I mentioned, and then now Baylor, who's playing great football. But they're still one win away from bowl game, like you mentioned. This is going to be awesome. I hate doing this, but again, I'm going to take a road team here in the Big 12. I'm going to go Kansas -1.5 here. That line flipped, right? It opened, I think on the other side for Baylor. To me, you look at some of these margins and you look at some of these things. And by the way, I'm going to read off a couple stats here. I only filtered in November because these are different football teams, right, than what we've seen early in the season. These guys are playing great football as of late. So in November, Kansas is second in the conference in rushing offense, right? First in rushing defense. You flip that. Baylor, fourth in rushing offense. Very, very good, but 10th in rushing defense. To me, that could be a spot where they do get got. Yes, Sawyer Robertson has been playing great football, but we saw last week it doesn't matter how good you're playing offensively. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. If you cannot stop the run, you cannot stop this Kansas offense and Devin Neal. I do want to ask you this, though, the fatigue factor for Kansas, the fatigue factor, especially for Devin Neal, a guy that got almost 40 carries last week. Does that worry you? Does that worry you? Or does that kind of just put more on the shoulders of Jalen Daniels to maybe carry the ball more than he has?
Um, I don't know. I Baylor's offense has absolutely put up numbers these last couple weeks, and you want to look at like the rushing stats, and I think like seeing recent performances is a big deal. But I also look at some of these teams that they've played. I guess in the month of November, right, which is only three teams, but I mean West Virginia on the road, like yeah, and Garrett Green playing quarterback, sure he had 129 yards on the ground himself, but they kind of stuffed Jaheim White a little bit and kind of bottled him up at that running back spot. It was more the powerful C.J. Donaldson that had more success on fewer carries, which I guess you would classify Devin Neal as maybe more of a power guy between the tackles that's had a lot of success doing multiple different things. But um, the one that is concerning though is that performance. No, so even against TCU, I don't know. I don't think it's Baylor's run defense is as bad as maybe you're making it out to be. I think that Iowa State performance, I guess, was maybe a little bit concerning in the run game. Texas Tech, but who hasn't Texas Tech run the ball on this season? Uh, I think I'm gonna go with the home team here. I like the way that Kansas is playing football right now, but I also like the way that Baylor's playing football. And in a game where you're going to give me points to the team playing at home, and Sawyer Robertson just playing really good football, rattling off 5 straight wins for the Baylor Bears after starting 2-4 with a loss. Remember, at Utah, you had that loss early in the season. That's Utah's only win in the Big 12, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and then
Or no,
you
that
had
wasn't a
that.
conference game, was it?
Oh, that technically wasn't. Yeah, you're right because that
Which
was
is why
already a home
Baylor's
run
still
schedule.
alive in the conference.
That's right. And then that overtime heartbreaking loss to Colorado, which by the way, what would we be talking about right now if Baylor had won that game and not given up that Hail Mary on that last play of the game to I believe Will Shepard. Maybe it was LeJontay Wester. Um, whoever it was. I mean, Baylor's only losses in the Big 12 right now are Colorado, BYU, and Iowa State, who are some of the top teams in the Big 12. But those are all teams that Kansas has beaten. So we all know that Kansas is
within the last
capable of
month,
beating. Literally,
bro.
yeah, Kansas is literally capable of beating anyone. So I like your angle there, and I think that Kansas is playing remarkable football, and I think that they are and should be classified as one of the best teams in the Big 12. But I like Baylor at home right here. I think they're playing really good football. I think they're confident, playing confident football, and I think Sawyer Robertson could definitely be a game maker right here and potentially elevate this Baylor team to a win at home against Kansas, which an 8-4 season. Which, by the way, it would be a bummer if Kansas missed a bowl game. I'm sneakily rooting for Kansas to make a bowl game right here because I think that they kind of deserve it with the way that they have played football all season. So maybe this is like the football gods that reward Kansas for playing the way that they have this year and give them that win. But I do like the way that Baylor's been playing, and maybe I'll regret picking that. And because I can see a situation where Kansas wins, but and blows out. I can see a situation where Baylor, forces some turnovers and has some explosive plays and blows out Kansas. I could also see Kansas blowing out Baylor. I mean, Kansas did not punt a single time against Colorado, right? That's how good of football Kansas is playing right now. So it feels a little bit icky to pick against them, but I'll take Baylor in this spot at home.
Yeah, which is fine, and I totally get that at home. Baylor's also playing great football. This is exactly why we previewed this game. It's going to be awesome to watch. I brought up the Devin Neal point and the fatigue factor there because Daniel Highshaw, who is I think one of the better backup running backs or tandem running backs in the Big 12, he's in the portal right now, which is just killer. I mean, at time when you're starting to play good football, and regardless, he wants to continue his education elsewhere, wants to get more opportunities next year, which is fine. But he would be nice to have, especially if Devin Neal is, you know, fatigued because he did get the ball so many times, and maybe Baylor is not quite dealing with that fatigue. But everyone's banged up. I think in late November, that's what makes these games so fun. It is a game where Kansas does have a lot at stake there, to make a bowl game. So I do think Devin Neal will be ready to get after it, but it's just something I'm going to be keeping an eye on early in the game. If he looks slow, if he's struggling early in the game, that could be a spot where I could maybe change my feeling on how Kansas could be going, and maybe you see a spot where Baylor can really take advantage of that.
I believe Baylor, by the way, are they the only team in the Big 12 to have rattled off. No, I guess Baylor and
BYU,
BYU are the only two teams that have rattled off 5 straight Big 12 wins this year.
who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought, man?
By the way,
Who would have?
in November, Kansas against the 3 to 4 top best teams in the conference. Kansas is 51% on third down. 51%.
Yeah, just third in the country, right?
Yeah, well, it's in November technically. Like
Well,
it's
I know, but they're also 51.5% on third down for the whole season if you extrapolate that, and that's third in the entire country. They're also
that's
third in red zone offense,
oh
and Baylor is 78th in red zone defense. But Baylor's been able to get off the field, so uh, thanks to that run defense on early downs and being able to pin your ears back and get after quarterbacks. They've also forced some turnovers too. But I,
it's been
yeah,
frustrating. I'm sure Kansas fans, because you're hearing these stats and you're like, gosh, what could have been this Kansas team? Because not that you're not gonna have talent like this again, but like it's Kansas. Let's be honest here. I love Lance Leipold, but it's like, where has it gone wrong early in the season? Little margins was the problem. As a guy that held a Kansas ticket to win the Big 12 preseason, it's been like I'm happy to see because I can be like, yeah, I saw something. I saw something. But it was too little too late. Regardless, though, it's going to be an awesome game.
Minnesota needs Paul Bunyan's axe. They need it bad. Okay. But Wisconsin needs to retain it. And Wisconsin also
I
needs
think
bowl
Wisconsin needs it
eligibility.
more, man. I
Wisconsin
won't
also
lie,
needs
bro.
bowl eligibility. Minnesota traveling to Madison to play against Wisconsin in one of the, if not the oldest rivalry in college football, if I'm correct in that, at least Division One rivalry. Because I mean Yale, I know they played their games, whatever. They're not Division One anymore, but Minnesota, Wisconsin is as old as it gets in terms of Division One football rivalries. So yeah, this ball game is going to be awesome. Wisconsin 2.5 point favorites at home. I get why they're power rating these teams pretty similarly. I think Wisconsin kind of plays well into Minnesota. With Minnesota being able to attack opponents through the air this season has been really kind of a game changer. But the caveat with that is that Wisconsin's secondary has some really, really strong pieces there that have played against Minnesota for, I guess 2 years now. And, Hallman and Wohler, both fantastic football players. Minnesota, are they going to have to do this on the ground like they normally do in late November? This might have to be the case, right? And from a defensive perspective, I would say that, losing your defensive coordinator to Michigan State, who's been so good for you for a while, and, having the tackling problems that you've had in the front seven and the lack of depth in the secondary, for all of that, Minnesota's defense has been awesome this year, I think. Despite all of those things, Minnesota's defense has been awesome. They have way over exceeded my expectations. I thought that defense was going to be abysmal, and it was looking like that the first couple weeks of the season when they gave up a couple explosive runs to Iowa and gave up maybe 1 billion yards on the ground, and their offense was struggling. But Max Brosmer's found it, dude. He's slinging the pill. Daniel Jackson continues to prove why he's one of the best wide receivers in the Big Ten. On the other side, Will Pulling is, also one of the better wide receivers in the Big Ten. And they've also had some pieces that have kind of come out, not out of nowhere, but some pieces on the rise. Braden Locke playing better football as the season has gone on. This is going to be a heck of a ball game against two coaches that uh, I don't know that they love each other.
No, I love it. It adds to the rivalry here. It's been a weird year, I think is the right term for both of these programs. I think Minnesota obviously has some frustrating losses. You think back to North Carolina, you think back to Rutgers, you think back to obviously getting blown out by Iowa, but really more so the Penn State loss recently. So yeah, it's absolutely been tough. However, you've had some high ups, which have been surprising. You've had a couple ranked wins, and for Wisconsin too, you've been oh so close, maybe once or twice there. You blew a big lead to USC. You obviously lost to Oregon recently. So yeah, it's been up and down here. I think Wisconsin needs this though. I really do. They're recruiting well. Yes, I get that. But Luke Fickell, right? If you want to get Wisconsin fans upset, you break that bowl streak. They do not want to see that. Not against your rival either, a team where historically Wisconsin's had their number, I think, within the last couple of decades. However, more recently, it's got a lot more tight for Minnesota there. And that's a lot of credit due to PJ Fleck. Also on the other side there, maybe a little bit more on the Wisconsin former coaching staff side as well. Regardless, though, Minnesota, you said it, deserves a ton of credit. They have won in different ways this year. A lot of it has been due to the turnover margin, though, right? In wins, Minnesota is by far first in turnover margin. They are averaging 2.5 plus 2.5 in turnover margin in wins. That's how you need to win this football game on the road. Good thing for Minnesota, Braden Locke is good for one interception a game. I mean, he is.
Yeah.
Although he's been playing good football, I get that, but he's good for one a game. And if you're Minnesota, you can be opportunistic. You can get that one short field. And the interesting thing is, you said it, Minnesota through the air has been awesome and really impressive. I think third down, third and long to me has been a spot which has historically been just impossible. And a punt or a run for Minnesota, it has been actually gettable for Daniel Jackson. Elijah Spencer has come on over the middle. Jameson Gears is turning into a reliable tight end. Yeah, and even against, I think, good secondaries. Right, Illinois has done some good things this year in the Big Ten. Penn State, I thought Minnesota moved the football well against them, even through the air. Yeah. By the way, rushing offense, Minnesota is 16th in the Big Ten. That is crazy. I would not have thought that at all going into the season. And here they are, bowl eligible, with a chance to win 7 football games over their rival. With all that said, I like Minnesota +2 here. I have not been on them in a long time, right, on this show. I think the market has been a little bit too high on them recently, but I like Minnesota right now. I think they're playing good football, even though they've got 2 straight losses. This is much, much different than last year. Last year, they came in with bad losses to Purdue, Iowa, and excuse me, Ohio State coming into this game here, and then they kind of got manhandled. This is a much different feeling
And
here.
Michigan, right? They got pounded by Michigan too. Or was
Yeah,
that 2
but
years ago?
that was last year, but that was like I think that was earlier in the season. That was before their bye. But regardless, though, the point still stands. It's been a rough out in here, or it was a rough November for Minnesota last year. This November, I think, has a chance to be much better.
I'm gonna be with you, CD. And what as a Minnesota fan, what are the goals? Right, you gotta make a bowl game, win that bowl game, beat your rivals. You didn't beat Iowa this year. All right,
It's gotta be Wisconsin.
you gotta beat Wisconsin. Get that axe back. It's scary going into into Madison. It is a scary place. That place will be bumping. Okay, that I think that I know it's not. It's been a disappointing season for Wisconsin fans in general, but they will show up for this game. They will show up. I don't know how many Minnesota fans are going to be there. I'm sure you could attest to that more than I could, but Oklahoma and Georgia are the only two teams in college football with a longer active bull streak than Wisconsin. Wisconsin's been to a bowl game 23 straight years.
It's really
Would
impressive.
Minnesota fans just love it if they were the ones that wrecked that bull streak? 23 years. I know that Gopher Twitter would be going pretty crazy after that. And I think they can do it. I think, like you said, they have thrown the ball in the air against good secondaries. I don't think that's going to be super scary to them. Wisconsin, I do think they have one of the better secondaries in the conference. By the way, I don't think that's crazy to say. That secondary and those pieces and the way that they've played this year, and against the teams that they've played, and they made Oregon look pretty silly, right? They made Dylan Gabriel look pretty silly. I know Dylan Gabriel's good from one road stinker a year, and Oregon barely escaped out of that alive. But I like Minnesota in this spot. Hopefully they can, kind of stop the run in this spot, get those turnovers, like you said, force Braden Locke to make those errors that we know he's very capable of making. Yeah, I like Minnesota in this spot. I'll take him plus 2.5, and I'll take him to win as well.
Lastly, I will say here. So we talk about making a bowl game. However, in the APR rating, which determines right, what's basically if there are not enough bowl eligible football teams, which I don't know how it's going to shake down. We can't know until after next week. But then you'll see some 5 and 7 teams potentially, make the bowl games. It's through their APR. Wisconsin's sitting at tied for seventh right now. However, you've got a team in Cincinnati who's at sixth, who's at 5 wins, and I think they're dogs to TCU, and
Yep,
then
short
the
dogs.
and then North Carolina's 6 wins. So that's really the only team right there in the way. Although Northwestern has how many wins? They have 4 wins, so they get a win against Illinois. And my point is, it's don't rely on the APR. Just do it yourself if you're Wisconsin. I think that's going to be the message, this week for Luke Fickell and obviously Wisconsin fans.
Arizona State travels to Tucson in a rivalry game against a team that, yeah, has Arizona disappointed this year? Yes, definitely a little bit. Has Arizona State exceeded expectations? Absolutely. But has that stopped either team from beating each? I mean, you've seen some terrible Arizona State teams beat Arizona. You've seen some terrible Arizona teams beat Arizona State. That has not stopped any of these teams from showing up, even on the road. You're looking at Arizona hosting at home; they're 8.5 point dogs. Okay, when I look at Arizona State's uh, defense, the most impressive thing for them has been their ability to kind of stop the run. And as a result of that, they put opposing quarterbacks in bad spots on third down. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think they haven't really tried all that much to establish the run. They haven't looked great doing it. The only thing that they've looked good doing is throwing the ball to Ted McMillan all year. But here's the thing. I mean, a 200-yard Ted McMillan game could be enough, to win you this football game. The defensive side of the football, though, of Arizona is where it's very concerning. I think offensively, the problem with Arizona has just been getting going too late and being too one-dimensional in those football games when you're losing. The defense has been a problem, right? Johnny Nansen leaves. He goes to be the co-defensive coordinator at Texas. You lose some talent at corner. You lose some talent on the defensive line, particularly in that interior that got out of there. Uh, you lost what could have been a 5-star true freshman playing on the edge for you this season. You lost some guys on that defensive side of the football, and it has looked night and day different since the departure of Johnny Nansen. And that's not good because Arizona State's offense these last couple weeks has looked awesome. Samuel, a quarterback, is slinging it for the Sun Devils. Cam Scadaboo is getting it on the ground. You know, uh, Arizona State has done a remarkable job taking care of the football. They're top 15 in the country, and turnovers on the offensive side of the football, only garnering 8, while collecting 18 turnovers themselves. Being plus 10 in the turnover margin is pretty key. Arizona, on the other hand, 12 interceptions from Noah Fafita, 7 fumbles. Uh, there's only like 15 to 20 teams in college football that have more turnovers than Arizona does on the offensive side of the football. So, and on the defensive side of the football, you could say that they've kind of caught some lucky breaks, recovering 8 fumbles of their own, which is top 20 in the country, while only forcing 8 interceptions, which is in the bottom half of college football. So 8.5 is a lot of points in a rivalry game. Okay. And when you look at these numbers, you're like, okay, like this kind of screams an Arizona State beatdown right here. But Arizona at home. I don't think Arizona looks great in the APR. I think that their chances to make a bowl game are not really there, regardless of like whatever 5-win teams are going to win football games. I I still like I kind of like Arizona in the spot plus 8.5. I do think Arizona State's going to win. I don't think that they're going to make it easy. Arizona, this is what they're playing for. They got a chance to ruin their biggest rivalries. Chance at the Big 12 playoffs in in their first season in the Big 12, and then I mean, that's really it, I guess. I mean, other than just winning a rivalry game at home, I think that there's still a lot to play for Arizona, and I think Ted McMillan's going to give them their best. I think Brian Ward is a fantastic defensive coordinator for Arizona State, and I think he's going to do his best to try to box them up. And if he does, if he has success doing that, this will be a blowout and get ugly for Arizona State. So Arizona, they just got to get Ted McMillan going and defensively do enough, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, a fast start here would be nice for Arizona because we've seen Arizona State jump on teams recently and really get after teams, forcing them to play. Now, however, Arizona is, built more than other teams in the Big 12 to play from behind because of the quarterback, because of the wide receivers. However, if you have been awful taking care of the football, and Arizona State has been very opportunistic as well, that's not where you want to be. Trailing by double-digit points early on, having to throw the football, having to rush things, because that's where you could see this thing snowball, and that's where the 8.5 could really come into effect. Yeah, I like Arizona State here, even to cover the 8.5. You said it's a lot of points in a rivalry game on the road. We previewed 3 Big 12 games this week, and I'm on the road team in all of them, and that terrifies me. It really does, because that's not going to happen, especially because of all these things matter in so many different games in so many different ways. But to me, what Arizona State can do running the football and getting after this Arizona State, or excuse me, what Arizona State can do running the football and getting after this Arizona defense, to me will be the difference. Defense and running game can travel. Arizona State's been really good stopping the run, although Arizona hasn't tried much to run the football. I do think if you can't run the football, then you're going to be put in a bad spot. Obviously, Ted McMillan, you want to be taking advantage of him and what he can do offensively, but man, oh man, you just got to play so crisp, so clean. And Arizona has not done that this year, and Arizona State has. So give me ASU minus 8.5.
Yeah, it's not crazy at all. I don't love my Arizona pick at all. Again, like I said, if things go right for Arizona State, they could blow out this Arizona
Things
team.
go.
Absolutely. And it looks
Oh,
good. That
yeah.
they're playing for a lot more than Arizona is. Right? There's a lot more for them to lose. There's a lot more on the line. They're playing a lot better football. Uh, but definitely having a home game in a rivalry is a big deal for Arizona. If this thing's in Tucson, I mean, I'm like, yeah, this is double digits, 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns. I don't know, but something about that rivalry game, it gets weird. It's in Tucson. I'm anticipating this thing getting a little bit weird and maybe a little bit uncomfortable for Sun Devil fans despite them thinking like, oh, we kind of can walk into this Big 12 championship right here.
Yeah,
We'll
when
see. We'll see. I've been high on Arizona State. By the way, like if you think I'm hating on Arizona, number one Arizona State fan the last month of this football team. I was the one that was saying that maybe we should be looking at Arizona State plus 1700 to win the Big 12 here just 3 weeks ago, and where we at right now?
the only interesting thing here is for Arizona, and we like Brent Brennan here. We thought it was a solid hire, especially late in the cycle because of what he did at San Jose State. I know a lot of Arizona fans are upset about it. He got put in a really bad spot. His buyout is what, $14 million. I don't think they have the money to do it, right? However, you look around, and if there's an opportunity or a year to potentially be a team like Arizona in the hunt for a head football coach, this might be it in college football because of maybe what USC is doing, LSU, Florida, Baylor, even David. Like you got a lot of these teams that and coaches that were potentially Sam Pittman on the hot seat, right? That are playing good football and potentially going to keep their football job. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting. Also, you got a lot of recruits coming in. If you do keep Brennan, that's very important. So it's going to matter, I think, for Arizona. You know, it's not just about winning a bowl game or winning the Big 12. It's college football. Like these kids get to play this game once a year, right, against Arizona State. A lot of these kids grew up in Arizona. A lot of these kids know each other. And it's obviously, like, I don't think it needs to be this massive outcome for Arizona if they do win. It's just about beating your rival and having a good time at home, potential senior night, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, I think it's awesome. I'm glad we previewed this game because first of all, it's amazing opportunity for Arizona State, but also you said it still means a lot to Arizona to get this win.
Yeah, I understand the Brent Brennan frustration, with the season that you've had so far, and also maybe you've lost some recruiting battles that you really probably wouldn't have lost if Jed Fish was still there. But also, I think Jed Fish did Arizona a little bit dirty, on the way out, kind of just taking that entire team basically with him to Washington, and then performing mediocrely in the Big Ten. you know, uh, but yeah, I don't know. I just like Arizona in the spot. Liberty travels to Huntsville, Texas, to play Sam Houston. The Bearcats, both teams. Here's what's at stake here, and here's why we're previewing this game. As someone who's watching this in our channel for the first time, you may be a little bit confused, but um, if Jacksonville State beats Western Kentucky, which I know they're dogs, but I personally think that Jacksonville State's going to win that game. The winner of this game then plays in the CUSA championship. So there is still a ton on the line in this football game, and obviously both these teams are going bowling. Uh, both these teams are playing pretty good football these last couple weeks. No, Sam Houston State's coming off of the loss to Jacksonville State. Liberty kind of bounced back from those two losses in the middle of the season, and one particular to Kennesaw State. And Liberty's offenses still look really good this year. They're running the ball insanely effectively. Um, and we just saw Jacksonville State kind of shred Sam Houston State, specifically with the quarterback rush. And well, both Trey Stewart and Tyler Huff both ate up on the ground for Jacksonville State against Sam Houston State. And Sam Houston State's offense has been pretty not good recently. Um, Liberty's favored by 2.5 points here on the road. I think I understand that. And I think I'm gonna roll with that. I think I'm gonna roll with the Liberty pick here at uh, minus 2.5. I know it's on the road in that Sam Houston environment. It's pretty sneaky, especially in a game like this where there is so much on the line. That is going to be a pretty rowdy environment in Huntsville. And I still want to make it a point to go to a game at some point. I just won't be able to make it to one this year, which is unfortunate. But actually, I almost went to that game where they played Western Kentucky at home, but I couldn't make it to that one. It was on a Wednesday night. Almost went. It was like $6, $8 tickets. Would have been awesome. I would love to go to a game, but maybe down the road, maybe next year. But this Liberty football team, I've had my doubts about it pretty much all season, and they did have those slip ups in the middle of the season, but I still think Quentin Cooley, Billy Lucas, uh, their quarterback, whose name is Caden
Caden
Salter. I,
Salter.
I think on the ground, they're going to be able to do enough. I know Sam Houston's defense has been quite remarkable this year. Actually, it's been quite remarkable. And if they do stay in this game, if this is a close football game, I kind of like Sam Houston this spot. I do think Liberty's going to find the end zone a couple times. Not sure Sam Houston State, even with the struggles that Liberty's had on the defensive side of the football in some areas, I don't know that Sam Houston's going to score enough points that they need to win this football game. So for that reason, I'm on Liberty minus 2.5.
Yeah, I'm with you here. In just by the slimmest margins, don't feel great about it. I think at
No,
home or on the road, I think it does make a difference here. And by the way, both these teams are playing for a lot. I did want to check when is the time of that Western Kentucky Jacksonville State game because that could matter. Okay, so it's on Saturday. So this game will be over. This game is before it. So not Santa Houston State needs Western Kentucky to lose because Liberty obviously has a tiebreaker for them. Western Kentucky has a tiebreaker over Sam Houston State. So if they do end up with the same record, Western Kentucky would go over Sam Houston. But regardless, we feel pretty good that Jackson State will get that job done. So to me, this is a de facto playing game for the CUSA. You said it. I mean, I think Liberty has been better defensively than maybe they get credit for. They've still been top half in the CUSA, which I know it's the CUSA. Regardless, it's been in bad spots that they have struggled in. It's interesting though; they are pretty bad in the red zone. You talked about it. Sam Houston State's been very good in all metrics across defensively. I just think there's a little bit too much talent. I think you saw a guy like Tyler Huff be able to take advantage of the Sam Houston State defense. I think Salter and the talent that Liberty Jamie Chadwell does have will prevail in this football game, even on the road. However, there's a lot more pressure on Liberty to win this football game than Sam Houston. Right? If Liberty doesn't even make, it's already been a disaster. Not disaster. It's already been a frustrating season, I think, for Liberty fans because of the expectations coming in. But to me, I think there's still much, much more pressure on Liberty because if you don't make a conference championship game, which you cannot do if you don't win this football game, I think that's when you get into real disappointing season, type aspect. If you're Liberty, you can at least hang your hat on having a chance to play for this USA title. But Sam Houston, it's all gravy right now. I think what they're doing, obviously, they've had a lot of success traditionally as a program. Regardless, though, I think it's been an awesome story in college football what they've done down there in Sam Houston State. But yeah, with that said, I still like Liberty by a little bit. I think, like you said, they'll outscore enough of Sam Houston. You think if they get to 20 points, 17 points, they feel pretty good about this, or do they need more?
Liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if they get to like 23, 24, I think they could definitely pull this one off. My guess at a score would be like 31-17, similar to like that Western Kentucky game, which by the way they also played at home as well. And Western Kentucky, Caden Feldkamp looked really good through the air in that game, but also it was on the ground. That Western Kentucky was also able to have success. I think, but it kind of like took a while, right? It was Sam Houston. I believe that game was tied, and then also if you remember, Hunter Watson got injured in that game, and he didn't come back, and that's a big deal, right? Hunter Watson hasn't been perfect, but he's in that. I'd say he's more of a gamer than he is frisky, right? Uh, I think he can win football games for you at Sam Houston, and I like the way that he plays. I just don't know if it's conducive to beating Liberty and scoring enough points that you sometimes need to do against Liberty. And as we say this, I don't think I think we both expressed that we're not very confident in our pick in this spot because if you remember, I mean, Liberty has lost probably the biggest, largest upset of the entire season uh, to Kennesaw State. I mean that in terms of like point spread, and that being Kennesaw State's only FBS win this entire football season, and it'll maybe stay that way, maybe not. Preview maybe to the Dirty Dogs, but um, Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting game, and I think it's important that we did talk about it because of the implications. I know some people might be upset that we're not talking about the Iron Bowl. Maybe that'll come later, right? But just this is going to be a good football game. So I make sure you guys are looking out for this one on Friday nights. That one and the MAC game that we talked about, both having implications for their each for their conference championship games. So just be on the lookout, guys. This is a good weekend of football. That doesn't just pertain to Power Four football and the college football playoffs. The Lone Star Showdown, potentially the biggest game in Kyle Field history at Texas A&M. Texas is traveling to Texas A&M. Texas A&M is 5.5 point underdogs. The winner of this game will play against Georgia in the SEC championship. Not can, but will play Georgia in the SEC championship. Texas's first year in the SEC, one of the favorites to win the SEC. Texas A&M, 20-1 odds. You know, if you were pretty sharp, like someone on this show, you would have taken that 20-1 odds for them to win the SEC championship. And they've never made it to the SEC championship. In fact, they haven't won a conference championship since they came back as double-digit underdogs in, what was that, 1999 in the Big 12. So it's been a long time. It might have been long. It might have been 96, 98. I don't remember. Right. This is the game of the year. All right, in terms of like college football playoff implications, conference championship implications, the rivalry aspect. It's been renewed after being gone for over a decade. These fans hate each other. Both of these teams refer to each other in their own fight songs, and it is not uh, amicable, right? There's a lot of animosity between these fan bases. It is, the what do they call them? The Pogues versus the Kooks in the
from
freaking
Outer Banks.
and from Outer Banks. This is kind of what this is, right? This is huge. This is massive. This game means a ton to both fan bases. You're going to see Texas fans in Cal Field. You're going to see a sea of maroon. You're going to see them sawing off those horns. You are going to see potentially the largest crowd that we've ever seen at Kyle Field, and potentially the largest crowd that we may ever see at Kyle Field with the renovations that they had. I know that Ole Miss game a few years back currently has the record at Kyle Field, but that they also made renovations that took away some seating. So, but they were pretty close uh, with that LSU game. So this is going to be at least be the second or first most people that Kyle Field has ever had. It is going to be loud. Northgate's going to be rocking. College Station's infrastructure might collapse because of all the influx of people coming in. This is going to be insane. All right. And you have a Texas team that, where credit's due, they haven't stumbled where others have, right? But you can look at their schedule and maybe point some fingers and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. The SEC did you a lot of favors this year to put you in the position that you are, right? And then when you had a chance to prove yourself against Georgia, they did not do that. But then you look on the Texas A&M side of things, and you look at, losses to Notre Dame at home. You look at the South Carolina loss, which you got mutilated in that game, right? Mutilated. We've talked about South Carolina being a good football team, and then you talk about that last week four overtime loss to Auburn, pretty emotional, heartbreaking. But because Oklahoma beat Alabama and because Florida beat Ole Miss, you have all of your goals ahead of you as a Texas A&M football team in year one under Mike Elko.
Yeah, wow, you said it. This game means just so much. I cannot wait for it. Selfishly, I think as a third non-biased third party here, it's good. I can say we're glad that Texas and Texas A&M are playing each other on Thanksgiving weekend. That's how it should be, and it's a shame it's been taken from us for a while now. It's good to be back in this football game. I don't know how I feel about this. I tried. I went back and forth. I'm trying to picture ways for Texas to win. I'm trying to picture ways for A&M to win. I just don't know who's going to show up on either side. I get Texas has probably been the second, maybe third most consistent team in the country outside of that one game against Georgia. But when Texas A&M defensive line wreaks havoc in football games, they can take it over. We saw it in the second half at Cal Field against LSU. We saw what Georgia's defensive line did against Texas back in Austin a couple months ago. It's going to be really interesting. The thing that worries about me about A&M is defensively, they have given up a lot of explosive plays, 10 plus plays or more, you know, on the defense side of the football. They're 13th in the country in, or I'm sorry, excuse me, 13th in the SEC in that bottom quarter there. Texas, on the other hand, is first. Now, yes, some of that is schedule. I get that. However, I do think it's a little bit worth noting. And Georgia, a team who I know they've struggled offensively too, but they still didn't get much going. I do think Texas defense is legit. I don't know how legit, because we've talked about their team and their schedule and the quarterbacks they've played so far. I mean, my goodness, they now maybe it's just they haven't looked good against them, and that's credit to Texas. I think it's somewhere in the middle in terms of being overrated and being this elite football team defensively, but it's scary. And even penalties too, right? So A&M, I've been frustrated, right, recently because of the penalties that have gone against them, right? They're 14th in the conference in penalty yardage per game, which, that's a lot. So you don't want that many penalties. Actually 14th in the SEC. Texas, on the other hand, though, does not force many penalties. They are last in the conference in opposing teams' penalties. So that could be a play there.
which
Obviously,
is
A&M
crazy.
loves, I know, which obviously A&M loves to run the football. They're second in the SEC running the football. UT is fourth in stopping the run. Texas A&M is 10th in stopping the run. Um, they're 12th in stopping the pass. A lot of storylines here. I think you just kind of got to throw it away, and I'm just gonna middle it. I know it's kind of soft. I know it's a cop out here, but I genuinely believe it's gonna be a fourth quarter football game. And when that happens in Cal Field, in a rivalry game, who knows what can happen? You throw statistics out of the way. And by the way, you've said it before many times, Quinn Ewers, I still like him. I still think, he's the best chance. I don't think he's hurt. I'm not too worried about that. But his mobility is not good as it is. His pocket presence is not good as it is. If his ankle is even a little bit limited, all right, like he's gonna struggle. When he gets pressure, like he really struggles, and you can see it snowballing. I do want to ask you this though. Over under 2.5 quarterbacks playing this football game, more like an entire drive. I'm not talking about
Uh,
putting one play in for Wigman, one play in for
yeah,
Arch Manning. I'm talking about like an actual drive with Wigman and Arch Manning, not due to injury.
I'm gonna say under. I think there have been several opportunities this season once Marcel Reed came in, especially in that South Carolina game, for Connor Wigman to come in, and they didn't do it. So I think they're fully set on Marcel Reed being this quarterback. I'll say this: I've been I think a little bit. I've been underrating Texas's defense. For the majority of the year, I haven't given them enough credit. They're really good, okay, and they have talent at all of the levels, okay, all of the levels. It's not as dominant in the interior, right, as it has been in past years. And I think like a gap scheme like A&M's with Colin Klein, I think they could gash them up the middle if Anthony Hill, if they get their hands on Anthony Hill, right? I think that could happen. But that secondary has been just really impressive for Texas. Really, really, really impressive for Texas. And Marcel Reed, he's looked better every single week. I think that there are mistakes to be had. Where I think that he's made mistakes, he's missed throws, and I don't think you can do that in big games like this, right? I do think that that interception, looking back at it from last week, I don't think it was necessarily his fault. I think there was a little bit of a Tugarooski by the DB that kind of threw off the timing of Trey Watson on that play. I don't think that was his fault, right? What I think it's going to come down to is whether or not Texas A&M chooses and wants to run the football down Texas's throat. I think they can. I think they can. Chase Basantis played some snaps last week against Auburn. I anticipate him being a full go. All right. This offensive line is going to be a full go. Okay. Amari Daniels, well, who knows if Ruben Owens is playing right? Amari Daniels has played well. All right. Who knows if Ruben Owens is playing? I don't know that he's will be even in shape, right? Because he's been out for so long, but he's been practicing the last couple weeks. Okay. That's a true statement. Okay, we'll see what the injury reports. We're recording this on Tuesday, so we have no way of knowing what the injury reports are going to look like for this upcoming weekend. For Texas, I think Quinn Ewers has had some stinkers. I think A&M has given up explosive plays. I haven't been in love with Texas's receivers all season. I do think that Texas A&M has had issues, covering tight ends in certain games. I think Gunnar Helm can definitely eat up in this game, but my A&M preseason prediction and Texas prediction. Well, for A&M, I predicted road losses to South Carolina and Auburn, and I also predicted a home win against Texas. I'm going to predict that in this game. I'm going to predict that Texas A&M makes it their first SEC championship game in its history, and that they leave their rival Texas at the doorstep on the outside looking in the SEC championship game. I don't feel great about it. I think Texas has played really well, but I also think that they've just been a beneficiary of a really, really not bad schedule. I know Arkansas is pretty physical, but Quinton Jackson averaged 5 yards carry in that game. But they didn't really. It just didn't happen. I think Texas A&M. I know what Texas is going to try to do. They're going to load the box. They're going to put Marcel Reed in the bind. But Marcel Reed played his best game of the season last week, and I know that that was in a loss to Auburn against a team which, by the way, Auburn probably one of, if not the most explosive offensive teams in the SEC. That just no one's talking about it, right? Because they've turned the ball over a ton and struggled to score in the red zone. I also think Texas struggles to score in the red zone, right? I think if they are going to score, they got to make big plays. And I think that this A&M secondary will be ready. And I think that this defensive line is also ready to go. And I got to believe that this Texas A&M team, I think both, I think the fan bases hate each other more than these players, right? Because they haven't been a part of that rivalry for years. But Nick Gordon is a College Station kid, right? I've I know Nick Gordon's feelings towards LSU, and I would imagine that those are reciprocated towards the team in the West. I think that Nick Gordon might be in for a big game. Even with Kelvin Banks, I think that right tackle has been a big old problem for Texas. It's been a big old problem. I think A&M can get to them. I know they've only had 23 sacks on the year, but part of that is like Lenore Sellers breaking out of sacks, right? Some of Taylor
Taylor
Green
Green.
breaking out of sacks, even though A&M had a lot of sacks in that game. I think that there is room for Quinn Ewers to go down, which, by the way, pressure to sack rate is pretty abysmal. So I think Quinn Ewers kind of has a stinker in this game, and I think that Texas A&M finds a way in a low-scoring football game to win this game at home.
Do you think if this game gets into the 30s, do you still believe Texas A&M can win?
No, no. I
Yeah,
think I think if Texas scores 30 plus points, I think Texas will win.
yeah. I think I tend to agree with you there. It's going to be really interesting. I also think Will Lee and Jaden Hill, two guys that were banged up in that Auburn game, sounds like they're coming back. That would be huge, especially against Quinn Ewers. And obviously, those receivers are gettable, but you need to have your guys going and playing well, and then you can focus on stopping the run. If A&M can stop the run, it looks really, really interesting. Also, starting early. Don't go down big in this game. Don't go down early.
Don't
Get
do
that
it.
crowd behind you because it, ask anyone. Ask Trey Zune, right? Trey Zune's. I know how he feels about Texas. I know he's amped up about this game. Quinn
Torian
Ewers,
York.
obviously,
Torian York's from Temple. He's not that far away. He knows. He knows what this rivalry means.
he didn't get recruited by the Longhorns. Regardless, though, I I think it's on both sides. I think both teams will be amped up, ready to go. I do want to ask you this last question for me. Quarterback edge? Nah, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Obviously, I do think there is one. Quinn Ewers, is probably a better quarterback than Marcel Reed.
He's
Although
more proven.
when Quinn Ewers is playing bad football, his floor is pretty darn low, and we've seen that before. However, I do want to ask you this: if Texas does lose, let's call it by double digits, right? I think if it's a one if it's a within 10-point loss, I think they should still probably be in because of who has lost behind them. Now, should they deserve to be in? I don't know necessarily because who they beat, but you could say the same thing about a lot of other teams. That's also probably going to be in as well. But if they lose by double digits here, you think they fall out? Well, first of all, should they? But do you think they
Yes,
will?
they should, but they will not.
Yeah.
there is something called ranking inertia,
Yep.
where for some reason that people believe like wherever you were ranked before, you either move up or down based on where you were ranked before. When I think that ranking should be more dynamic because teams that you beat, teams that you lost to are also playing football games. And rankings should be dynamic, and they're not. Inherently, they're not because the College Football Playoff Committee just is that way. The AP poll is that way. There's poll and ranking inertia all the time. Texas should not even be at 3, probably, based on their resume. Now, are they probably the third best team in the country? Yeah, probably. They're probably a top 5 power rated team in the country. Sure, absolutely. But doesn't matter. Give me the Aggies in this game. With that, we're going to move over to the Dirty Dogs. What are the Dirty Dogs? If you're listening to the show for the first time, the Dirty Dogs are 10-point underdogs. CD and I pick every single week, 2 each. We do a little bit of draft. This week I'm going to pick first because I've had the most recent Dirty Dog hit. On the season, we're 11-41, which sounds like a terrible record, but if you were to bet our uh, 10-point, basically straight up money lines on the whole season, you'd be up 2 units at least, so 2.1 units. So we're not doing bad. All right, and as the season's gone along, right, there are, should I say, sharper lines, right? So it gets tougher to pick these, right? But now we're in rivalry weekend. You throw all that stuff out the window. There is plenty of opportunity here for stuff to happen. I'm going to stick in the Power Five here with my first pick. Give me Auburn plus 380 in the Iron Bowl. Alabama has never beaten Auburn in Tuscaloosa without Nick Saban. I believe that's the stat because I'm pretty sure they used to play that game in Birmingham. I hope that whoever that guy on Twitter was, stat was correct. But if it's not, then I'm just going to look like a bozo. But either way, that's not why, right? I think Auburn has a lot more to play for right now. I think Auburn is dangerous when they're not turning the football over. I think Auburn is a very good football team. They're going to be able to run the football on Alabama. Okay, they're going to be able to match up physically with Alabama. Now, Peyton Thorne just can't make crazy mistakes, but Hugh Freeze also is a guy that just loves getting up for the big one. And I know this isn't Nick Saban. Hugh Freeze has Nick Saban's number. I don't know that he has Kane Womack's number. I don't know how many times that they've ever, if at all, played against each other. But yeah, I'll take Hugh Freeze's Tigers at plus 380 here in the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, there's a reason why we didn't preview this game, and I think part of it is Alabama losing, Auburn, whatever. But also, I have no idea what's going to happen this game. Like, I couldn't even tell you, and it's hard to give you some great analysis here because realistically, I don't know what's going to happen. And to be honest, as a dirty dog, I don't think Bama should be favored by 11.5 points. Can they win by double digits? Absolutely. They absolutely can't. They play their best football. If Auburn stinks it up, for sure. At home, definitely. However, we've seen time and time again in some of these games here. I don't hate it. That would have been my second pick here. So I don't hate that for you. My first one, though, give me Kennesaw State. Give me the Owls plus 385 over Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech should not be favored by 12.5 points in this game. I feel like I'm getting pretty solid value here. Listen, it's not about Kennesaw State being great. Yes, they just beat FIU. That was an awesome win, right? But I think in a game where it's probably going to be lower scoring, right? Maybe in the 20 or like the mid teens, right? Low 20s. I just think that favors an upset. And I think the Kennesaw State team can score enough points and stop Louisiana Tech enough and get a win on the road here. That would be awesome with the new coach. I think we saw the firing happen, and we've seen Kennesaw play much better football as of late since that happened, which, whether he should have gotten fired or not, who knows. But regardless, I do think it's interesting to watch, and this could be a spot where you get some value here at plus 385.
Yeah, I like it. The reason why I kind of stay away from that and I thought about it was just because Louisiana Tech's run defense in the CUSA has been pretty solid. I think Kennesaw State relies on that a lot, keeping the ball in their hands and, trying to milk that clock and make those games, one possession games and limit the opponent having the football and giving your team a chance to win late in the game, in those one possession football games. I just don't know if that's going to happen or not, right? So that's why I kind of stayed away from it. But I don't hate the play. Plus 385, come on. My second pick, give me Syracuse plus 330. The Orange hosting Miami. Why do I like Syracuse in this spot? Well, I think Syracuse has the talent on offense to put up points. This Miami defense has been pretty disappointing, okay, to say the least. Um, I think Miami could definitely be in a situation where they do blow out Syracuse, and I think Miami's offense will put up points against Syracuse. But in a shootout game, if you're asking me, what can happen, what are the variables of outcomes in the, I don't know what the stadium's called now, but I'm just going to call it the Carrier Dome because it'll always be the Carrier Dome to me. Weird stuff happens there, man. Weird, weird stuff happens. Feels like that line um, is probably appropriate, like from a power ratings perspective, but weird stuff happens there. And also Syracuse, I mean, they're going to get up for this game, man. Miami, they know what's at stake too, right? Miami knows that they lose, right? Clemson will get in over them to the ACC championship game, but I just kind of like Syracuse here in this spot plus 330. Give me Kyle McCord and the Fighting Orange against the Hurricanes.
I don't hate that. That would be crazy. That would send shockwaves throughout the ACC. That would bump Clemson up into the ACC championship game, potentially playing against SMU. I would think against SMU. Yeah, because they're undefeated. So regardless, so yeah, they would be a massive, massive story. In Syracuse, by the way, they're 8-3. Is that right? The Syracuse Orange, first year head coach, they are 8-3. That is awesome. What a story they have been. Obviously, they have some tough losses, but also some good wins. We knew their schedule was going to be pretty easy. Regardless, though, it's been impressive. I think you got to be excited about what you're seeing there in Fran Brown. I'm going to go to the SEC here. I'm going to go to Nashville. Give me Vanderbilt over the Tennessee Volunteers. I believe it's going to be plus 350. Yeah, listen, I think what you're going to find some margins here. I know Tennessee has been a good defensive team all year, but also I just think Vanderbilt, like you get a Diego Pavia type game. I think you get a spot where you scheme up things open. Vanderbilt with a chance to win 7 football games, first time in a while. I think red zone conversions, Tennessee has been terrible. I mean, just terrible. Vanderbilt's very, very good. I know defensively, Tennessee's very good in the red zone. However, I think sometimes good offense does beat good defense, and that's where you see a spot here. Plus, with what the scheming and what they can do, um, Tim Beck and Jerry Kill, what they can do, offensively and get Diego Pavia in good spots there. Yeah, Vanderbilt plus 350. Also, I just think, like I know I've picked against Tennessee in these Dirty Dogs before. I just don't know if they have the horses if they don't play well offensively. Like I know they can just hand the ball off to Dylan Sampson, 40 times, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I also think that could be a spot where you do see, although Vanderbilt is, not bad against the run, so that could be a spot where you do see some value. That's where I like it. Vanderbilt plus 350.
Yeah, in Nashville, I mean, things could get stinky over there. Things could definitely get stinky over there. I don't think Tennessee fans should just, chalk that one up as a win, and then say, oh, we're in the college football playoffs with 2 losses or whatever. That one could get stinky. But there's a lot on the line, I think, I would say for both teams. I mean, this is potentially Diego Pavia's, last SEC game ever? Don't count that guy out. But also, Tennessee's playing for the college football playoffs. So I think there's both teams are going to get up for this game in interstate, I guess, rivalry in the situation. So, but Vanderbilt, this is like the one year that I think Vanderbilt like has the horses to potentially get Tennessee. So I think that's going to motivate them a lot, and I think they know it in that building that they can get them. So I like that one. That's gonna do it for the Dirty Dogs. Let's head over to the counter now for our best bets. I got 5 plays, you got 7, so I'll let you start this one off real quick, and we'll just start rattling away here.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll start off in the American. Tulane is 14-point home favorites against Memphis. I know it's a big line. I know Memphis has some talent, but Tulane, I think, is on a mission. I've been riding them for a while now. I've been very pleased with the outcome. Give me Tulane minus 14.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I'll give you one here. Give me. Texas A&M +6. Let's not even think about it. Let's just go full steam ahead. Come on now. Let's go.
Wow, that's crazy. I like that for you though. The Sun Belt, Louisiana is 8.5 point road favorites against UL Monroe. This is a spot where they have to get a win here. I think they do. I was really impressed with how Fields played last week and the week before that, filling in for Woolridge. Give me Louisiana minus 8.5. Don't think the ULM can score with Louisiana.
Good luck. I think that's like probably the right side, but good luck
I
on
know.
the road in a rivalry game. Uh, I'm gonna go over to the Mountain West. There's a team out there that has a chance to make a bowl game, and they got to go to the islands to do it. New Mexico -1.5. Seems like CD's on that as well. Let's freaking ride. Come on.
Give me Bronco Mendenhall. I'm with you there. Two is way too small. Is it 2.5 now?
I saw that 1.5.
Oh, let's go. Well, I was doing this late last night. It was at 2.
I'm seeing a 1.5 out there. We'll play it at 1.5 if you
All right,
want it.
heck yeah. I'll take that. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm all the reasons you said. They're so close to a bowl game. They're super frisky offensively, super dangerous. Their metrics are awesome. Give me Bronco Mendenhall. I'll go the ACC in another rivalry game. North Carolina State +4 on the road at North Carolina.
Wow.
I know. I welcome to
Wow.
the best bets here at the counter. NC State. They've been playing better football as of late. I'll give them credit. I really like CJ Bailey and what he can do offensively. Been super impressed with his growth all year long. I think 4 is way too many points. Whether it's between a field goal or NC State wins straight up, give me the Wolfpack.
Wow. I did not expect that from you because I almost took North Carolina -3.5. I'll kid you not, but I just couldn't do it. Couldn't get myself to do it. Would I hate to fade you because I don't think we faded each other on a best bets pick all year. But
I think we did one time.
I don't think so.
I'll have to go back and check.
From what I'm looking at, maybe I don't think so. But anyways, yeah, pretty scary for you, not gonna lie. But I'm gonna go over to the CUSA game that we didn't preview, but means a lot. Jacksonville State's 1.5 point dogs to Western Kentucky. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? It seems like you're on that as well. Let's go.
Give me the Gamecocks. Absolutely +1.5. Yeah, Jack State. You said I think they're the better football team. I think the wrong team is favored here, even on the road. Don't care. I do want to ask you this though, Rich Rod, veteran coach. Not that they're gonna rest guys because they should not.
It's college football.
I don't
Games
think.
mean a lot.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Recruiting, everything else. Winning football games is important in college football. Even if you do have your spot clinched in the conference championship game. Going to the Big Ten here, Michigan State -1 at home against Rutgers. Um, yeah, I know I faded Michigan State a couple weeks ago. Been fading Rutgers last week. Yeah, I like Michigan State here. I think you got a significant quarterback advantage. I think they're at home. They get it done here. Jonathan Smith and company -1. Give me Michigan State.
Let me fade a team that I've been fading the last 2 weeks without success. It's going to happen. Arkansas +3.5 on the road going to Missouri. Okay. I've been fading Missouri the last 2 weeks with no success. All right. I like Arkansas on this spot. I think they're a better football team. I know they're going on the road, and that is a tough place to play. And, 9 wins looks a lot different than 8 wins, right? But also, 8 wins looks a lot better than 7 wins for Arkansas. Or seven. Arkansas's at 6 wins, right? So 7 wins they would have, maybe at 7-5. But either way, I just like this Razorbacks football team better than I like this Missouri football team right now. I think Landon Jackson is going to eat those tackles alive for breakfast, lunch, and for dinner. Okay. Do I love that Arkansas secondary? No. Are we bummed out that was it Braylon Braxton Is that his name? It's been out since like week 3. It's been a bummer that he hasn't been available all season. It looks like he won't be available once again. Arkansas also just lost a rotational defensive end player for the year. Will likely, well, for the rest, obviously this game, right? So we'll see if he comes back for a bowl game or not. I believe he's going to have some knee surgery there, but it doesn't matter to me. I think I like I like Arkansas plus 3.5. Give me the hook. If I didn't have the hook, I'm out. But because I have it, I'm in.
Yeah, I really thought about taking that. I just think maybe Missouri is a little bit better than we potentially could be giving them credit for. I thought I was impressed with what they did at South Carolina there. My last one here, TCU minus 2.5 on the road in Nippert against Cincinnati. I think they
Ooh.
outscore Cincinnati. I think they put Brendan Sorsby in tough spots. I love Sorsby, but he is prone to turnovers. He has not been perfect recently. Cincinnati's skidding. TCU is on the rise. TCU is still alive for the Big 12 championship game. They need a win here. Let's go Cincinnati, or let's go TCU minus 2.5.
Yeah, I don't hate that, especially with the way Brendan Sworsy's been playing. Uh, I know Cincinnati can qualify for a bowl game also, so it's not like they're not playing for anything either. I know that they got that APR helping them out big time, but we'll see. We'll see. Then my last play, give me the Gamecocks. I'm on both Jacksonville State Gamecocks and the South Carolina Gamecocks on the road. South Carolina plus 2.5 against Clemson. We talked about it. I love it. Feed it to me. I think they're going to beat Clemson straight up, and they're going to get to, what is that, 9 wins. And I think that people are going to have a conversation about them in the college football playoffs. I don't know. I don't think that they'll actually make it, but I think that people will have that conversation and will be interesting.
It's not crazy at all.
So, well, that's going to do it for our best bets, our dirty dogs, and our game previews. Thank you guys for tuning in to our Week 14 preview, where it's rivalry week, guys. College football is absolutely flying right now. It is in full swing. Okay, it has been all season. If you've been listening to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast, but we appreciate you guys. If you like this content, like the videos, simple rule we have here, consider subscribing, right? Because we feel like we put out good content for you guys, and uh, let us know what else you want us to see, what other teams you want to talk about, maybe segment ideas in the off season. Not that we're thinking about the off season because we haven't even CD and I haven't even talked about what our plan is for the off season because we are so locked in on this football season right now. So make sure you're also tuned in for the bowl game as well. We're going to start a bowl pool at some point, so make sure you're on the lookout for that on Twitter and on YouTube. So we appreciate y'all for checking us out. So, CD, anything for us on the way out?
No, just enjoy the weekend. Hopefully, safe travels. If you are traveling, all right, enjoy time with family, football, and friends, and all that good stuff. Just enjoy this weekend because, damn it, man, the regular season college football, I think, is the single greatest sport, the single greatest part of sports, right in America here. And man, oh man, it just went by just like that. So, regardless, thanks for watching. Thanks for following us along all season long. Hope you've had as much fun as we had.
We'll see y'all in the next one.